Semuanya dimulai dengan satu harapan, sebuah pencarian tentang pengetahuan dan wawasan. Kami, Universitas Harapan Bangsa, tempat di mana pendidikan tinggi bertemu dengan cita-cita mulia para pendiri. Di sini, kami memandang pendidikan sebagai landasan untuk mewujudkan harapan dan memberdayakan individu yang dibuktikan dengan komitmen dan keseriusan. Dipenuhi dengan sumber daya manusia yang mandiri dan berbudaya, kami bertekad menjadi Center of Excellence dalam pengembangan ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi yang tidak sekedar menawarkan gelar akademis semata, melainkan sebuah perjalanan tentang pencarian jati diri yang membuahkan keberhasilan. Kami tidak berkata, tetapi kami berkomitmen. Universitas Harapan Bangsa di bawah naungan Yayasan Pendidikan Dwi Puspita dan kepemimpinan Rektorat dari masa ke masa, kami peduli, memperhatikan, dan memberikan ruang bagi pertumbuhan pribadi serta profesionalisme. Di sini, kami tidak hanya belajar bersama, tetapi juga tumbuh sebagai satu keluarga. Kami mengerti arti pentingnya memberi dukungan, menginspirasi, dan menghargai satu sama lain. Inilah yang membuat kami kuat dan tangguh dalam menghadapi setiap tantangan. Karena di UHB, ini bukan tentang aku, kamu, atau dia. Tapi ini semua tentang kita. Bersama-sama, kita bentuk pondasi kebersamaan yang kokoh, yang menjadi landasan pengembangan diri dan kontribusi bagi masyarakat. Demi menjawab tantangan akan harapan dan minat generasi muda, kami memiliki 3 pilihan fakultas dengan total 14 program studi dalam Fakultas Kesehatan, Ilmu Sosial, dan Sains Teknologi. Di Fakultas Kesehatan, kami menyediakan berbagai pilihan program studi, mulai dari kebidanan program Diploma 3, keperawatan program Diploma 3, farmasi program sarjana, keperawatan program sarjana, keperawatan anestesiologi program sarjana terapan, pendidikan profesi nurse, pendidikan profesi apotekan. Dengan kurikulum terkini dan fasilitas yang memadai, kami siap membantu generasi muda mempersiapkan diri menjadi profesional kesehatan yang kompeten dan berintegritas, dengan tetap fokus pada pengembangan keterampilan analitis, komunikasi, kewirausahaan, dan kepemimpinan. Kami menawarkan 3 program studi, yakni Hukum Program Sarjana, Akuntansi Program Sarjana, Semuanya dimulai dengan satu harapan, sebuah pencarian tentang pengetahuan dan wawasan. Kami, Universitas Harapan Bangsa, tempat di mana pendidikan tinggi bertemu dengan cita-cita mulia para pendiri. Di sini, kami memandang pendidikan sebagai landasan untuk mewujudkan harapan dan memberdayakan individu yang dibuktikan dengan komitmen dan keseriusan. Dipenuhi dengan sumber daya manusia yang mandiri dan berbudaya, kami bertekad menjadi Center of Excellence dalam pengembangan ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi yang tidak sekedar menawarkan gelar akademis semata, melainkan sebuah perjalanan tentang pencarian jati diri yang membuahkan keberhasilan. Kami tidak berkata, tetapi kami berkomitmen. Universitas Harapan Bangsa di bawah naungan Yayasan Pendidikan Dwi Puspita dan kepemimpinan Rektorat dari masa ke masa, kami peduli, memperhatikan, dan memberikan ruang bagi pertumbuhan pribadi serta profesionalisme. Di sini, kami tidak hanya belajar bersama, tetapi juga tumbuh sebagai satu keluarga. Kami mengerti arti pentingnya memberi dukungan, menginspirasi, dan menghargai satu sama lain. Inilah yang membuat kami kuat dan tangguh dalam menghadapi setiap tantangan. Karena di UHB, ini bukan tentang aku, kamu, atau dia. Tapi ini semua tentang kita. Bersama-sama, kita bentuk fondasi kebersamaan yang kokoh, yang menjadi landasan pengembangan diri dan kontribusi bagi masyarakat. Demi menjawab tantangan akan harapan dan minat generasi muda, kami memiliki 3 pilihan fakultas dengan total 14 program studi dalam Fakultas Kesehatan, Ilmu Sosial, dan Sains Teknologi. Di Fakultas Kesehatan, kami menyediakan berbagai pilihan program studi, mulai dari kebidanan program Diploma 3, keperawatan program Diploma 3, farmasi program sarjana, keperawatan program sarjana, keperawatan
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a refreshing break and enjoyed the insightful discussion in the parallel session earlier. It is a pleasure to have you back with us for the second half of the second Globe International Conference 2026. With me, Aktinis Muksita Paradista, I'm delighted to continue as your moderator with us today for this afternoon's plenary session. We have already had an incredible start this morning with Professor Jawade, and the energy continues as we prepare to dive into two very important topics, which are human capital and sustainable supply chains. We are truly honored to have two more distinguished experts with us who will share their global perspectives before we open the floor for a collective Q&A sessions later on. Without further ado, let's move to our first speaker for this session. It is my pleasure to introduce our second keynote speaker joining us from the University of Johannesburg, South Africa, Professor Cassandra Mara. Professor Cassandra Candice Mara is an academic at the University of Johannesburg, specializing in human capital development, strategic innovation, and international business. She has professional experience in banking sector, such as the ABSA, Sanlam Namibia, and Bank of Namibia. And she is known for bridging academic theory with real-world business practice in the African context. Today, she will present a session titled People as Strategy, Aligning Human Capital with ESG in African Hospitality. Please join me for a warm welcome to Professor Mara. Good morning, Professor. Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, very clear. Thank you. Professor, you
Good.
have 30 minutes for your presentation. Please, the screen is yours.
Right, can you see my screen?
Yes, Professor, we can see it clearly.
All right, good. Okay, good morning, everybody, and I'm delighted to be here to present this keynote address to you. My talk is on people. People are the strategy, and I'm presenting to you from my life's work, which was in human capital development, and my field of study was in the hospitality management in particular. Let me start you off with two numbers. Not data, not a framework, just two numbers that I'm placing side by side here today because they tell you the story of my entire talk. The first number is 60. That's the percentage of young people in Africa who are unemployed. It might come as a shock to you, but this is the reality to us. Between the ages of 16 and 25, currently these people can't find work. The African Development Bank has been reporting this figure for years, but it has not moved significantly. It is a number that should disturb us every time we hear it, but I'm worried that we have heard it so many times that we have stopped being disturbed. The second number is 0. That's the number of standardized, validated frameworks that hospitality managers in South Africa, and this is the study that I will draw on today, use to validate if their investment in training those young people is actually working. The sector invests millions every year in developing human capital, and it has no agreed instrument for proving that the investment was worth making. These are two numbers that are not unrelated. You'll see as I go through it, the hospitality and tourism sector is one of the few sectors in Africa that can genuinely absorb these unskilled and semi-skilled workers. But they can transform their lives through a deliberate development of human capability. But it can only do that if it takes serious the question of whether its development interventions work. And into this landscape, I want to introduce ESG. Now, ESG stands for Environment, Social, and Governance. And this is a framework that's rapidly becoming the language of corporate accountability across the globe. Is already regulating it. Investors everywhere are demanding it. South African listed companies are also beginning to report on it. And it's the unlisted companies, which is where most of the hospitality sector actually lives. A group of financial officers that quietly experiencing what one researcher describes with remarkable precision as existential anxiety about what it requires of them. This social pillar of ESG, the S in it, that stands for social, that is supposed to capture a company's relationship with its people, its communities, and its workforce. In South African hospitality context, it is almost entirely ungoverned. And it is for this reason that I wanted to focus on this today. So the address draws on two South African studies conducted independently of each other. The one was my doctoral thesis, which examined how hospitality managers in South Africa and Namibia perceive the risk and return of investment in human capital development. And the MBA dissertation of Narissa Jalim, a friend of mine, who explored how chief financial officers of unlisted South African companies understand and enact their ESG responsibilities. Neither researcher knew of the other's work at the time that we wrote it, yet we both arrived from opposite directions at the same conclusion, which is that we have built a world in which people are the most important asset and the least rigorously measured. This convergence is what this keynote is all about. So just to quickly take you through the agenda, these two studies are completely divergent, but they are diverging here today. The one is on the human capital backbone, and the other one has an ESG backbone. Our focus is on people in crisis, particularly on the S in ESG. We focus on where human capital and ESG collide. And then I want to put together a framework as for ESG and ESG strategies. And I want to almost make a call to action to all of us here in the room today. This quote is also just something that I put together. The most urgent ESG problem for African hospitality is not the carbon we emit. It is the human potential we are failing to develop, measure, and protect. The second pillar of ESG in the African hospitality context is almost entirely ungoverned. Not because businesses do not care, because they have no measurement infrastructure and no governance mandate to do anything about it. So I want to tell you the story of the Namibian chef that I interviewed. His story appears in my data. He's a senior chef who trained his entire kitchen team. He reduced food wastage, and obviously, as you can imagine, this is a huge expense in any hotel's budget. He mentored his staff informally. He passes on techniques to them, also his professional pride. He was in every sense executing a human capital development strategy. The problem is that nobody called it that. Nobody measures it. Nobody reports on it. There's no scorecard that he needs to comply that captures this. But he is not an exception. He is the rule across the board. And that's the crisis. My doctoral study set out to understand how hospitality managers in South Africa and Namibia perceive the value, the return and the risk of human capital development, the formal and informal on-the-job training, the mentoring, the skills. And for this, I interviewed 32 managers across all seniority levels in 12 organizations in these two countries. The picture that emerged is both illuminating and deeply uncomfortable. The belief is there. The evidence is missing, however. 29 of the 32 managers I interviewed said without hesitation that human capital development improves their organization's relationship with guests. They believe in training. They experience its effect intuitively. They could point to a better trained chef, a more confident front desk employee, etc. So they believe in human capital investment, and that is not the question. What is the question is the evidence of their investment. The Kirkpatrick Phillips training evaluation model, it's been internationally accepted since 1950. And it's been tested in industries and countries around the world, was unfamiliar to most of these managers that I interviewed. When they did evaluate, it was what we call a smile sheet, ad hoc, intuitive, rarely extending beyond the first two levels of this model. I'm going to show you the model in a minute. Participant satisfaction and observable behavior change. These are the things that they really need to measure. Nobody was measuring business impact. Nobody calculated the return on investment, not because these things are not important, but because it was the culture in these organizations and the infrastructure for doing it simply did not exist. So I asked these participants a question that caught many of them off guard. So what do you think are the risks of investing in human capital development? The question was uncomfortable because most managers had never even asked themselves or never thought about training as risk-bearing. Risk in their understanding is something that happened to physical assets, to financial positions, or to the company's reputation. Training was just training. But when they were pressed, the risks started emerging, and they were significant. 25 of the 32 managers identified industry poaching as the highest impact risk they faced. They trained people, and then these people leave for competitors or for other industries that had not invested the money in the training. The mathematics of this is brutal. The organization absorbs the cost, the competitor captures the return. And in a sector where the turnover rates that characterize African hospitality, driven by low wages, by limited career pathways, and the particular mobility patterns that we see in these young people, that's not a marginal risk. It is structural. Beyond poaching, other risks also surfaced. For instance, the mismatch between highly educated millennial workers and often semi-literate senior employees create a mentoring gap. And that no formal training program has yet resolved that gap. CETA interventions, for you people in the room, the CETAs are the government's mechanism that extracts money from private companies, and they use that money for skills development through levy rebates. But these CETA requirements were experienced by managers not as strategic support for them, but rather as an additional compliance burden, which is completely disconnected from achieving their organization's objectives. And the absence of pre-training needs assessment across most organizations meant that training was frequently done as a response to a crisis rather than a component of strategy. This observation recurs through the study and deserves to be taken seriously. a significant proportion of young people entering the workforce do not choose this industry. They enter it because it's accessible and because unemployment is the alternative in a country where unemployment is so high. That reality does not mean investment in their development is futile, but it does mean that the investment must be more deliberate, more targeted, and more rigorously evaluated than the sector currently does. So that, I want to show you my the Kirkpatrick Phillips model. Just briefly, this is what the model does. First, it was developed by Donald Kirkpatrick in the 1950s, as I mentioned, and his model consisted of 4 levels. First one, that measures the participants' reaction to the program. The second one measures their skills. The third, their application to the workplace, and the fourth measures business results. And then in the 70s, Jack Phillips then added a 5th level, which was to measure the return on investment. More difficult to measure when you look at the benefits aspect. So my unique contribution to this Kirkpatrick Phillips model was the 6th level, which is the level of risk evaluation. The most significant academic contribution of my study is this 6th level framework that extends the Kirkpatrick Phillips training evaluation model. The original model, like I said to you, it measures participation, learning, application, and business impact. And then the level that Jack Phillips added measures the return on investment. What the model has never addressed is the risk of not meeting the objectives set at each level. The probability that training will fail to close the gap it was designed to close, and the organizational consequences of that failure. I proposed a needs assessment at the front end of the model. This step that should precede every training intervention, but almost never does. And a risk assessment at the back end, the step that asks whether the training achieved what it promised and what the cost of falling short will be. This is not a minor modification. It is a reframing of training evaluation as a governance activity embedded in enterprise risk management rather than human resources administration. It should be a part of enterprise risk. Now I want to shift vantage points from the front line of hospitality to the boardroom. And I want to tell you what Narissa Jalim found when she interviewed CFOs of unlisted South African companies about ESG. The world she entered is different from my kitchens and hotel lobbies, but the failures that she documented is structurally identical. Where I found managers who believe in training but could not measure it, Jalim found CFOs who were aware of ESG but could not operationalize it. I found a measurement vacuum, but she found a governance vacuum. And in both cases, the dimensions of the problem that were most neglected, most resourced, least defined, the least visible, was the one that concerned people. Jalim used Stewart's demand constraints choices model of role theory, a framework that was developed to understand how managers navigate boundaries of their roles under competing pressures. To interview 15 CFOs across manufacturing, consulting, mining, retail, all South African companies, all of them with CFOs of unlisted companies, which is the environment where the vast majority of the hospitality businesses also operate. The findings she made revealed a governance failure with direct consequences for the social dimensions of ESG. So just to also give you some background on ESG, the term ESG was formalized in the UN's Global Compact Governance Framework and adopted by the United Nations to mobilize a global movement of sustainable companies and stakeholders to create the world we want. That is their definition. Social responsible Socially responsible investing, or SRI, became a global practice during the 1980s. It evolved during the 90s to include corporate social responsibility, or what we know as CSR. During this time, South Africa escaped the global CSR pressure because we had sanctions against the country during the country's apartheid regime. In 2006, however, ESG gained traction as the UN supported the formation of the Principles for Responsible Investing, which promotes the incorporation of environmental, social, and governance factors into investment decision-making and into financial reporting. From a South African perspective, this PRI, or the Paris Agreement, and the United Nations Framework Conventions on Climate Change influenced our National Development Plan 2030 to commit to climate change goals. So CSR rose to prominence during the 1990s and incorporated the aspirational views of delighted consumers, and it provided superior returns on investment to shareholders while making the world a better place. Hence, CSR has emerged as this inescapable priority for business leaders in every country. The most common feature is that it is a voluntary commitment to a company. So therefore, it is self-regulated. It's based on the qualitative assessment of the company's social and community contributions and its impact. It shows a natural evolution of CSR into ESG. Evidence in more recent studies performed by the UK relating to Moray et al., who researched ESG in small and mid-sized companies. The outcomes of this UK study confirmed that such UK SMEs viewed ESG as an extension of CSR. Although this study was conducted in the UK, it's also very relevant to South African unlisted companies because of the existence of small and medium enterprises in both these markets. ESG has arrived, but it is peripheral. Just like hospitality measurement, it is peripheral. Every CFO in Jalim's study was aware of ESG. Everyone had encountered it at a board meeting, at a summit, and these requirements are being stated. But every one of them confirmed that they spent very little time on it relative to their core financial responsibilities. ESG has been delegated to them, often informally and often without a clear parameters, and they had placed it on a list that was already overflowing with workplace requirements. The governance failure here is therefore structural. Jalim's study shows that CFOs operate without board-level mandate that defines their ESG role, without a delegation of authority that gives them the power to act, and also without a strategic framework that tells them what the organization's ESG priorities are supposed to be. They are expected to lead on ESG without being given the tools to do so. And because they are trained as financial professionals, they are precise, they are evidence-driven, they are risk-conscious. This ambiguity is experienced not as a freedom, but as a source of anxiety for them. The conflation of ESG social pillar with triple BEE compliance and triple BEE compliance in South Africa is a racial transformation framework. It is a legal requirement to address a genuine historic injustice, but it's not a human capital development strategy. It does not require organizations to measure whether their investment in people is improving their performance. It does not capture employee well-being, training return, community impact, or skills development in any comprehensive sense. So what she also found was that CFOs are anxious, and the governance signal is not a personal failing on their behalf. 80% of these CFOs she interviewed reported high levels of anxiety about ESG. It's remarkable, and it deserves careful interpretation. These are experienced senior financial executives who have managed statutory compliance, tax risk, investor relations, and regulatory change. So they are not easily anxious. The fact that ESG produces this response in them is a signal about the nature of the challenge that's facing them, not about the capabilities of the individuals. The anxiety, she argues, comes from three sources. It is the strategic tension between shareholder expectations of short-term financial return and the long-term investment that is required by ESG. The second is the undefined nature of this mandate, the absence of clarity about what they are supposed to do. And third is the fear of accountability without the accompanying infrastructure, the sense that they will be asked to report on something that had not yet been given the means to measure. That is notable, and it has direct implications on how ESG governance should be designed. Is that these CFOs expressed a clear preference for mandatory ESG requirements, not because they are compliance orientated, but because a legal obligation would give them the authority to act that a voluntary framework does not. They want to do this, but they need permission. Her third finding was that the S in this ESG has largely been outsourced, and there's nobody on the other side managing it. She found that the CFOs has developed rational coping strategies for the components of ESG they found most technically demanding. The environmental pillar, which is carbon measurement, energy consumption, resource use, was outsourced to specialist consultants. So that one deserves a tick. The governance pillar was mapped into existing King 4 obligations and managed through existing board structures. These are reasonable responses to a genuine competency gap, but the social pillar has no equivalent coping strategy. There are no social ESG consultants in the way that there are environmental consultants. The King 4 report does not provide a roadmap for social ESG with the specificity it provides for governance. And triple BEE, as Jalim shows, is an imperfect substitute. The result is that the S, the dimensions most directly relevant to a sector built on human labor, on human relations and human capability, is being managed by default rather by design. So I converged these two studies, and I thought very cleverly, and now I'm going to tell you where human capital development and ESG collide. I said at the outset that these two researchers did not know about each other's work. I want to show you precisely where and why that matters. I was sitting across casino managers in Windhoek, Namibia, asking them whether anyone had measured whether the training was working. Jalim was sitting across from a CFO in Johannesburg, asking them whether she had the mandate to invest in the social dimension of ESG. Neither knew about each other's conversations, but the answers to both questions was, in every essential aspect, the same. Nobody has told us we need to measure. Nobody has given us the framework to measure, and nobody has certainly given us the authority to act as if it matters. These collision points make this conversion visible in today's presentation. Collision point 1 is that there is a measurement vacuum. My hospitality managers cannot measure the return on their training investment. Jalim's CFO cannot define the S in ESG and what it requires of them. The result was a double vacuum. The front line has data like turnover rates, guest satisfaction scores, training expenditure, but no framework for interpreting that data as ESG evidence. The finance function has the language, but ESG has no human capital metrics to populate it. These two vacuums are not separate problems. They are the same problem. They are described from opposite sides of the same organizational structure. The practical consequence is stark. When ESG reporting becomes mandatory for unlisted companies and the trajectory of Johannesburg Stock Exchange guidance, for instance, the IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, Standard 1 and 2, and the lending requirements make this a question of when rather than if hospitality business will have nothing credible to report under the social pillar. Triple BEE scores will be offered in its place, and the gap between what ESG's S promises and what gets reported will be visible to everyone except the people that wrote the report. Collision point 2, the African context is not a footnote, it's the whole story. Both studies are inconsistent on this point, and it's worth being equally insistent here. The challenges that characterize human capital development are specific, and consequential, and any ESG framework that does not account for them is not just incomplete, it is counterproductive. Consider what our combined evidence reveals. 60% youth unemployment means that the hospitality businesses are often the first employer for young people. The emotional investment, the passion that produces exceptional guest experience cannot be manufactured by training alone. This is a human capital challenge with no parallel in Europe or America. At the same time, the cash constraints of unlisted companies documented in extraordinary detail by Jalim means that ESG investment competes directly with operational survival in a way that no listed company can ever anticipate. So collision point 3 is the embeddedness or employee embeddedness as the bridge between human capital practice and ESG governance. Human embeddedness theory, which I draw on to understand why hospitality employees stay and others leave, offer something unexpected in the context of this argument. It offers a bridge. It holds that employees are more likely to remain with an employer when they are embedded in their community through their work, when the job creates links, not just colleagues and tasks, but to the broader social environment in which they work. This means for hospitality, properties that invest in staff housing, for instance, it means organizations that treat their workers not as units, but as members of a community. These investments do a few things simultaneously. They reduce turnover, they create measurable, reportable metrics, and they are, in other words, a human capital development strategy. Neither of us makes this connection explicitly, but now I want to show you how we explicitly can make that connection. I call it the measure mandate embed model. It draws on my 6-level evaluation framework, on Jalim's 4 practical recommendations for CFOs, and the theoretical bridge that job embeddedness provides between them. Let me discuss these 3 components quickly of my model. Component 1 is the measure component. It asks hospitality organizations to build the measurements infrastructure. This means at a minimum, the pre-training needs assessment that is aligned to strategic objectives. This is not a bureaucratic exercise, it's the mechanism by which training becomes governable and the steps that transform an institution about people development into evidence about organizational return. The mandate component asks boards and shareholders to particularly do what Jalim's CFOs were asking them to do. And that is not a gesture towards triple BEE compliance, but a genuine strategic matrix that defines what human capital investment means for their organizations. And the embed component asks organizations to design their human capital investment deliberately for embeddedness, to treat the connections between employees and the communities not as a byproduct of good employment practices, but as a strategic outcome in their own right. These 3 challenges, one for each constituency in this room. For researchers among us in human capital development, the Kirkpatrick Phillips model is a foundation. It was the foundation that contributed to my study. The sixth level that I'm proposing, which is the risk assessment, is theoretically coherent and practically necessary. Build the instrument. I've already built it. Now we need to test it. For researchers in ESG and corporate governance, the social pillar for you is the least developed, least understood dimension of the framework. Jalim's study shows that CFOs are looking towards something with specificity, something that tells them that they need to implement this as a matter of urgency.
Excuse me, Professor. Just a kindly reminder that we have 5 minutes more for the
Yeah,
presentation.
that's fine. I'm almost done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. To stop treating human capital as a human resource problem and ESG as a financial problem, and we must start treating both as dimensions of a single urgent question. What does it mean to build a business that genuinely invests in people, and how do we prove if that is working? So to go back to the Namibian chef, he wasn't aware that he was doing ESG or that he was executing a human capital development strategy. Everything he was doing was exactly what the S in ESG is supposed to look like. The problem was that nobody in his organization had the framework to see it. His contribution was real, his impact was real and visible to his CFO, to the board, to the ESG frameworks that will eventually be applied to organizations like his. We don't need to invent the future of people-centered ESG. It is already happening in kitchens, in front desk, in hotel training rooms across the continent. What we need to do is to see it clearly enough, to name it, to measure it, and to govern it, to argue for it loudly enough that the institutions that write ESG frameworks cannot afford to keep ignoring it. Africa does not need to import an ESG framework for its people. It needs to formalize the one its people are already living. Okay, if we have 60 seconds left, I can try and show you this video of South Africa. I'm not sure if it's actually going to work, but if it doesn't, please forgive me. It's always the problem with technology. You test it before the time and then it doesn't work when you actually want to use it. Sorry, first a YouTube ad. Okay, so now unfortunately I can't share this video, but I'm happy to share it with you afterwards. Either way, I wanted to just show you a little bit of what my country is about. Another way of to find that out is, of course, you can come and visit us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was my presentation.
Thank you so much, Professor Mara, for the insightful look into social pillar of the ESG and the human capital vacuum. It's very unfortunate that we can watch the video, but maybe later, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, to complement our discussion on strategic assets, everyone, we will look into the operational side of sustainability. Moving immediately to our final keynote speaker for today, we have Professor Technologist Dr. Veerapandiyan Kalyani Sundram from University Technology Mara, Malaysia. Dr. Veerapandiyan is a professor of Operations and Supply Chains Logistics at University Technology Mara for over 20 years of experience in academia, military, and government sectors. He specializes in supply chain management, is an active researcher and consultant, and has led industry and academic initiatives at both national and international levels. Today, Dr. Veera will guide us through navigating the green path, strategies for establishing and managing a sustainable supply chain network. Please welcome Dr. Veera. Are you there? Good
Yeah,
afternoon.
thank you to
Thank
our
you.
master of ceremony.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly, Professor.
Okay.
And you have 30 minutes to give
Yeah.
out your presentation.
Yeah,
Please,
I will
the
share
time
my
is
slide.
yours. Thank you. Would you like to share your PPT or do you need us to help you?
Yeah, no, I can actually share the slide.
Okay.
Not a problem, not a problem.
All right. The time is yours, Professor.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
My pleasure.
You just have to tell me whether can you see the slide or not.
Not yet.
Not yet, huh?
Okay, that's it. It's very clear.
Can you see?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you to the
Yeah.
chairperson, Honorable Rector of Universitas Harapan Bangsa, Dr. Yuris Trinaili, the Dean of Faculty of Social Science, Dr. Alfizi, the Chair of Organizing Committee, Mr. Pujanga Chandra Vijayaning, and distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, first of all, to Universitas Harapan Bangsa for giving me this opportunity to share my note on navigating the green path strategies for establishing and managing the sustainable supply chain. I'm Dr. Vira here from University Technology Mara, Malaysia. Okay, the outline as specified, basically we'll be looking at the sustainable perspective from the supply chain. And I would like to share some interesting case study on the Japanese airline sustainability and also how we in our University Technology Mara uh, have several programs on sustainable transport. Okay. Okay, allow me to start on this keynote by sharing something that is saddens the whole Malaysian, which happened on the December 16, 2022. This was the second largest natural disaster that has taken place, which has actually taken the life of 31 people on that very early in the morning, 2:30. This is the second largest natural disaster, and the number one natural disaster is is our Highland Tower condominium collapse in 1993. Yeah? The reason why I would like to I'm sharing this, what I'm trying to say here, as we are engrossed in development, we are actually being revenged by the nature. So here, what you can see. Okay. On my left, you can see here, this is the camping area of few students and teachers during the school holidays. This is a normal spot for most people who are in the cities to bring their children, especially as part of their school event. We can see beautiful camping area, greeneries along the way, okay? And after a landslide, which is unexpected, because this is in a hilly area, and such an incident has never taken place, and there's no signal of a landslide, but immediately, unexpectedly, this has taken place. You can see on the right hand side, you don't see any signs of camping. Everything is destroyed. Okay? So it is now time for us to realize that the environment is taking revenge on us based on our rapid development, which is not been, I would say, partly can be also be blamed because of the rapid development. So it is all time for correction. Therefore, we have to focus on sustainability, whether we like it or not. That's the reason why we have this SDG 2030, where under the umbrella of United Nations, over 100 countries have agreed to move into sustainability. And we have 17 flagship. This is what the nation is trying to focus. But along the way, we have cascaded this into ESG. The whole 17 flagship can be easily cascaded into ESG, where companies who are listed in the first board, it's mandatory for them to give ESG report annually, and scoring will be done. This will help Malaysia to look into carbon neutralization in the year 2050 and also imposing carbon tax somewhere around this year. So now let us look at the supply chain. Okay, what is sustainable supply chain is all about? You can see the whole supply chain here starts from conceptualizing a product, designing a product, looking for the right raw material, going into a transformation process that is manufacturing, and then going to the hands of customer until it is disposed. Okay, so a simple analogy here, you can have a look at this Fritos, and you can see the supply chain process. Okay, if every 34.5 gram bag of Frito-Lay chips, you can see there are almost 75 grams of total carbon footprint that is being produced. And when I ask many people which part of the supply chain that contributes the highest, many will say manufacturing. But the study has shown, if you look at the data that I'm providing here, farming actually contributes the largest carbon footprint, that is 44% for this particular production. So why farming contributes more than manufacturing? In fact, manufacturers are the one who transforms input to output. And why farming is giving an alarming figure. So to answer that, you can see here, most of the farming requires land. And in order to obtain a huge piece of land, we have to do deforestation. Deforestation is the major contributor to carbon emission because trees normally absorb carbon dioxide, and we cut off the trees for logging and other purposes. Eventually, not much carbon is absorbed from the environment, although you are actually doing farming. Farming does not eat much carbon from the environment that we produce. And if you can see here, Malaysia, Paraguay, Indonesia in line, you can see Malaysia is, I would say, one of the largest contributor in this particular sample and statistics when it is calculated across 12 years of study. That is quite alarming. And one of the reasons why farming causes huge carbon footprint is because of usage of fertilizer and pesticide. This actually create an excess of chemical, soil pollution, as well as water pollution. That's the reason. So here I would like to share with you a case study. This is a case study of a Japan airline which came out with a tagline, anywhere, everywhere. This is a study which is done by Japanese airline with a private institution, industry, where they were studying about anywhere, everywhere as a tech term. You'll be wondering, okay, this is a trial project with Sumitomo Corporation. The experiment took place from 5th July 2023 until August. This is a study where whenever you want to go to Japan and you want to use Japan airline, you can never ever dream of going to a country without a luggage, I'm sure. So how can you visit a place without having your own clothing and so on, as well as your body care as well? So what Japan government has studied here is because most of your luggage actually carries weight. when you crunch numbers, your luggage by 15 pounds would increase the emission by 80 pounds on the 10-hour flight. So in order to reduce this, of course, you cannot expect passengers to reduce their body weight. So the best we can do is encourage them to reduce their luggage, or even better, to go zero luggage. Okay. So with this zero luggage, there's an app where through this app, when you do your reservation for your accommodation through these hotels and Airbnb, you can actually rent your clothes. You don't have to bring your clothes from Malaysia or Indonesia or any part of the world. You just just through the app, you just rent. You don't even buy the clothes, you rent the clothes. Okay. When you book your place to stay, together you request for how many shirts and pants that you want to use for that short span of time. And then this will be taken into consideration in your future flight. If you are a passenger who reduces your luggage and reduces your carbon utilization, then through the carbon cut that is given to you, they know that you are a potential customer who has the initiative to reduce carbon usage, and you will get extra point. Through this extra point, you can able to get a better package or better price in your future if you want to buy any flight ticket from Japanese airline. So this is how Japanese government has taken an initiative to improve the supply chain sustainability across the hospitality industry. So that's why the Japanese airline, they come out with this tagline, anywhere, everywhere. So next, I would like to also share some of the supply chain solution for sustainability. I'm sure you can see here, this is a watermelon. Okay, this watermelon somehow or other was engineered in 1975. The name of this watermelon is Shikaku Shuka. Okay, so initial study done by Japan is how to increase stowability of this watermelon when you put into a carton box or even into a container. So if the watermelon is in oval shape, it creates a lot of empty spaces when you do packing. So when you have a square watermelon which is engineered, okay, then your stowability has improved, and subsequently you can have transport more watermelon, and this along the way can able to reduce. But of course, along the way, somehow or other, this watermelon was one experimental. But apart from exporting it for what you call as a fruit, but now within Japan, this particular watermelon has become very famous, whereby now it is kind of like people normally give it as a gift, especially when you want to do any housewarming, or these are the product that will be given as a gift, because this symbolizes good luck. Okay, but this is apart from the sustainability. Yeah. Puma Clever Little Bag also has initiated, because whenever you transport shoes, one of the biggest storing issue here is the bag, okay, the box, the corrugated box. So now, somehow or other, through R&D, Puma has researched, came out with this clever little bag. Okay, so the bag can be easily dismantled and does not utilize much storage. And the packing material, you don't have to throw it away. You can even recycle it to put in your, what do you call that, favorite trees and so on, or any plants for decoration and so on. Nespresso is another company, came out with a campaign, Positive Cup campaign. And through this campaign, you can easily see the capsule are made of aluminium. The reason is because it can be easily recycled. But even though Nespresso, which is environmental concern, the capsule has a limited lifespan. You can only recycle 5 to 10 times. After that, that particular aluminium will not be thrown away, but it will reveal as a new product. So Nespresso has its own bicycle, okay, produces bicycle, where this bicycle is made from the remaining capsule, which cannot be recycled, okay, which is the byproduct of the capsule, and this bicycle is sold, okay. So this is how recycling is emphasized by companies in order to ensure there is a sustainability across the supply chain. Okay, I'm not going to talk on the cruise ship, but let us look at Adidas. Okay, so Adidas also do have some green supply chain program, like dyeing and eliminating plastic bag. So most of the dyeing does not use chemical, but use organic material, and they do not use plastic bag. Okay. So this is how Adidas measure the gas emission and the carbon release across the supply chain. And each of these are monitored in real time. Okay, and you have, I would like to also talk about Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Okay, both do have agenda, because Coca-Cola is a beverage, and similar to that, they actually use up a lot of water. So now they have this water stewardship program where the water will be recycled for the manufacturing process. Okay, so with this, they reduce water usage. Okay, IKEA do have some programs where they will actually replenish the trees that they have used. So much so, their replanting program today have combined forest reserve is actually, we can compare with current forest reserve. They are in the size of Alaska, and they have planted more than 1.5 million trees. Okay, so their job is actually not to plant trees, but it's actually to produce furniture. But a part of their goodwill, and also providing a platform for sustainability, they actually replace the number of trees they have used. They replace it by replanting it. So much so, accumulatively, they actually have more than 1.5 million trees, which is the size of Alaska, bigger than the forest reserve in Alaska. Okay. Okay, logistics movement is also very important, especially nowadays when you have this energy crisis. The way you move your things has to be more strategic. Okay, you can see here, logistics company are enforcing the use of cross-docking. See, before you have a distribution center, your number of movement is 4 times 3, 12. You can see 12 movements here. But with the distribution center and cross-docking and consolidation, the movement reduces to 7. So these are the things now, geographically, goods are moving towards in this direction through cross-docking and so on, so that when we reduce number of movement, we reduce carbon utilization. Finance, bank companies and so on also moving into sustainability, okay, where they give loans specifically for biofuel and fossil fuel. But more priority is given for biofuel. Right? Okay. Next, I will be sharing with you a case study on how sustainable transport is implemented in my university. Okay. This university is in Selangor, the state of Selangor, in the city of Puncak Alam. So we can see here how students are encouraged to use bicycle. Although Malaysia, I think, share the similar climate like Indonesia. It's quite hot, the temperature here. Okay, but still there are days and there are time in a day where you can still use bicycle conveniently, provided infrastructure are provided. So these are the few bike park and ride facilities. Bike lane are provided to students. And also we have public transport. Two public transport that we have is Bintong Bus and Rapid Care. So public transport is heavily encouraged and used. Students are given what we call specific pass to use these facilities. And also, apart from providing bicycle facilities, we also rent bicycle. Okay, students do not, it's not a requirement for them to have bicycle all the time. Okay, but we have a rent time of 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 when the weather is quite nice in Malaysia. So students can do some recreational activity from 5:30 to 7 by cycling and so on. Over here, we also encourage students to not to use the elevator or the lift, and we encourage them to walk. You can see here there are staircases everywhere, especially when you look at our campus. It is an hilly area. Therefore, we have colleges, faculty on the highland. So students have to sometimes walk, and each staircase, we will motivate them by saying how many calories they can reduce for every one step. So hoping that this will motivate them. And we have names for all these ladders. One of it is, we call it Tangga Kejayaan. Okay, ladder for success, for better health and so on. And students have also initiated by coming up with ride share app. So within the students, they can able to actually rent their own car during peak season. And through the ride share is just RM1 only. And students can use the ride share, especially when the public transport is not in use. Okay. We also have transport day where we don't encourage any motorized vehicle on that particular day. And we also encourage physical activity like stair climbing marathon to encourage students to be healthy. And these are some of the parking facilities for OKU or people with disabled. And finally, based on my note, I would like to say that supply chain is not an option. It is something that we have to carry that in line with the SDG and ESG, and integrating supply chain across integrating sustainability across the supply chain will actually ensure that your upstream and downstream will be right intact in protecting the environment, people, and the planet as well. With that, thank you very much. Over to you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Vira, for the brilliant presentation. It's very eye-opening. Now, we're moving to the question session, but unfortunately, Professor Mara will not be able to join us for the Q&A session, so we will open the session for Dr. Vira only. So everyone, please drop your questions in the chat box, or you can use the feature of raising your hand. And then before you state your questions, please mention your name and your institution before you address your question to Dr. Vera. I will take 2 questions for each speaker and we will open this session for 15 minutes. Okay, everyone, do you have any question? You can start from now. Anyone has question? You can write your question in the chat box or you can raise your hand and I will give the floor to you if you have a question for Dr. Vera. Okay, Dr. Vera, we have questions from the chat box. Oh, we have 2. I will read it to you, okay, Doctor? Oh, this is for question, Professor Cassandra, which... Okay, Dr. Vera, my name is Diva Udani Amira, a third-year student from Management Study Program. I would like to ask, how can a company ensure that its sustainability strategy does not stop at corporate image, but is truly integrated into operation and managerial decision making?
Yeah, good. This is actually a good question because now people are also talking about greenwashing. Greenwashing is something like you write that as if you are doing some sustainable program, but after that, you do not know any impactful program. It's just on the write up to fulfill the reporting requirement. So whoever asked this question, this is very good. So how are we going to encourage? So again, it boils down to green leadership. I'm sure many wouldn't have heard this word green leadership. So it starts from the leader of an organization, okay, coming out with a vision statement. And slowly this has to be cascaded down to the employees as part of their KPI. Most of the time, KPI is based on performance, productivity, okay? How much output are you producing in a day? For example, students' performance are measured based on how do you perform in your exam. But along the way, students should also be responsible towards the environment, people, planet, and society. Yeah. So you have to have a KPI given to you. If you're a student at university, you need to do a green or carbon neutral program or green activity and so on. So to promote green at your level. And being in the university is our responsibility to not only promote this program within the university, but the community surrounding. Okay. So for me is leadership, cascade it down as a KPI. Even students can do that. We also do that to our students. We encourage students to do green programs, which does not cost much, but create awareness. I hope with that I answered your question.
All right, thank you for such a thoughtful response. All right, Professor. We have one more question from.
I think most of the question is for.
That's true.
For
I'm
the
trying
other,
to see
yeah.
for you. Oh, this is from another student in management study program. What are the main challenges faced by company management in building collaboration with suppliers, distributors, and business partners so that the entire supply chain network becomes more sustainable?
Yeah, very good.
Yep.
Okay, most of the time, if you look in Malaysia, I think this scenario could have been also similar to Indonesia and other ASEAN countries. Okay, we in Malaysia, we are heavily depending on the bigger companies to start first. Those who are listed in the first board, government agencies to start first. And then when they have already understood the whole process, then it is their responsibility to encourage their suppliers. Because bigger firm, when they enforce their suppliers to provide green related programs, services, or product, then they will follow. Because for suppliers, these big companies are considered as their customer. When the customer pressures them, then the supplier along the way will be forced to provide in order to be competitive. Okay, and we also have VDP, Vendor Development Program, which is introduced by many big companies, GLCs and so on. So part of it is we also provide funds and training grants to these small SME suppliers so that they can be very competitive. Okay, so this is how it is done. Mohon maaf, Prof. Tidak biasa join sebenarnya. Sila ajukan pertanyaan.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, that's very clear and direct answer from Dr. Vida. Do we have more questions? I'd like to tell you again that Professor Maro will not be able to join the question session. So please address your question to Dr. Vera. Thank you. We will wait for about 2 more questions. Do we have another one? We have another question, Professor, from the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
The question is, how can a company management balance supply chains cost efficiency with sustainability demand without reducing business competitiveness? Thank you.
Okay. I do understand your question because this is a common question asked. How can it be sustainable at the same time reduce our operational costs? Okay, cost has to be reduced and then you increase the sustain because many people believe that initial stage when you want to go sustainable, you have to adopt some technologies, process changes so that along the way it can be sustainable. So I do agree that there will be an increase in the cost because you need to provide training, you need to provide evaluation, auditing, and so on, definitely. But in the long run, let me tell you, it is similar to safety. If you want to ensure people in the organization do have good occupational safety, you need to provide PPE. PPE is personal protective equipment. Buying personal protective equipment can be costly, but in long run, you reduce the LTI, lost time injury. More people are healthy, less medical certificate, okay, less MC, they don't take leave because they are healthy, and eventually this increases the productivity. Same goes to if you don't take care of the environment, if you don't spend for sustainability, in long run you will be spending more money correcting it. A lot of damages will take place. Okay, pollution will increase, people will be sick, employees will be sick, more medical leave. Okay, so we don't look it in short term. Whatever we invest for sustainability, we calculate across 20 years time, the benefit is tremendous. I hope I answered your question.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Professor, for the insightful answers. I hope everyone is enlightened by the Professor Vira's clear answers. Okay, yeah, I think that's the last question. Due to the time constraints, we are unable to take any more questions from you guys.
Yeah, okay.
However,
Anyway, thank you very much. May I know your good name?
my name, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, your name.
My name is Dista, Professor.
Oh, okay. I would like to also offer myself in the future, if your university do have any subject on supply chain, I can come and give a talk via online.
Yes, oh my God, that will be delighted. That will
And
be great.
same vice versa. If you have expertise in the area of supply chain, I would like to invite your site to also provide similar expertise to my university.
Okay, very much. Thank you very much, Professor. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That will be a great idea. I would take that into our department to say that. Thank you very much. So
Okay.
everyone, due to the time constraint, we're unable to take any more questions, but the depth of today's presentation has been truly inspiring, and we hope this is just the beginning of our journey learning from such amazing experts like Professor Mara and Dr. Vera. Before we officially close these plenary sessions, allow me to provide a brief conclusion of what we have learned from our two speakers. Professor Mara emphasized that investing in people must be measurable, governable, and embedded in local context to drive sustainable ESG outcomes, while Dr. Vera highlighted that green supply chains are no longer optional, but a strategic necessity to support global goals like the SDGs through carbon footprint reduction. So on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to thank you all, to our distinguished keynote speakers for their invaluable contributions today. I would like to also thank the audience for your active participation throughout this session. Thank you very much, Dr. Vera, for coming. And then I will now hand the floor back to the MC for the award announcement and the closing ceremony. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day. Assalamualaikum.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to our moderators, all keynote speakers and presenters for the insightful and inspiring session. We truly appreciate the valuable knowledge and perspectives that have been shared. And now we will move to the announcement of awards. Before that, take a look to the video loop of Harapan Bangsa Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the final session of today's conference. Before we officially conclude, we will have the announcement of awards, followed by the closing remarks delivered by the chairperson of the Globe International Conference. Without further ado, I'd like to invite the chairperson, Mrs. Tri Pujiani, a Master of Education, to proceed with the announcement and deliver the closing remarks. To Mrs. Tri Pujiani, the time is yours.
Well, thank you for the time. Please let me know if I'm audible.
Yes.
All right. Well, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished keynote speakers, honorable guests, respected hosts and co-hosts, presenters, participants, and members of the committee. As we come to the end of the first Globe International Conference, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to all of you for being part of this meaningful academic gathering. Today, we have shared ideas, insights, and experiences that have truly enriched our discussion and strengthened our collective commitment to excellence in global learning and research. At this closing session, I'm pleased to announce several award categories for our conference. So this session, we will recognize the best evidence paper, best conceptual paper, best pedagogical paper, as well as the best presenter from each parallel room. These awards are intended to appreciate the outstanding contributions and inspiring presentations delivered throughout the conference. So, well, the slides are already on the screen. So without further ado, wait a second. Please wait a moment, because this is the most waited moment. So you need to be more patient. All right. I guess we've been ready right now. Are you ready, guys? So this is the award announcement of the first Globe International Conference 2026. Next slide, please. Yeah, for the first category is the best evidence-based paper. And here are the awardees. Okay, for the first place goes to the paper entitled The Effectiveness of Short Video-Based Learning in Improving 7th Grade Student Speaking Performance at SMPN 1 Balongan, written by Bunaya Muhammad Rifki Ayubi, Ida Yulianawati, and Indra Yoga Prawiro from Universitas Wiralodra. And the second place goes to the paper entitled The Cultural Narratives in English Language Classroom, a tool for promoting national unity and civic values among students in Kaduna State, Nigeria, written by Uthman Sehul Lawal, Rabiu Husani Ibrahim, Binta Mahmud, and Munirat Binta Abdullahi from Kaduna State University. The third place goes to a paper entitled Student Engagement in EFL Writing Through Multimodal Digital Pedagogy, a Mixed Method Study, written by Asep Hardianto, Dewi Sri Kuning, Muhammad Fikri Nugraha Khalid, and Adi Hartanto from Universitas Muhammadiyah, Kota Bumi. Next slide. Okay, for the next category is the best conceptual paper. Next. And the first place goes to the paper entitled AI Dependency and Standardization of Literary Interpretation, a study on students' responses to Cat in the Rain by Ernest Hemingway, written by Christine Marwinda, Inti Anglistina, Steffi Mega Mahardika, and Novita Al-Ihaq Dieni from from Universitas 17 Agustus 1945 Semarang. And then the second place goes to the paper entitled Reconceptualizing the Forum Group Discussion Model as a Collaborative Pedagogical Approach in EFL Classroom, written by Aldi Danuar, Berlian Kristanto, and Muhammad Soali from Universitas Harapan Bangsa. And then the third place okay, goes to a paper entitled Mapping Literature Pedagogy in EFL Classroom, Insight from Indonesian Higher Education, written by Daniar Sofeni, Pratiwi Ratnaningdia, and Wan Zumusni from Universitas Islam Darul Ulum Indonesia, Universitas Negeri Surabaya Indonesia, and UITM Sarimban Campus Malaysia. For the next category, the next category is the best pedagogical paper. And then the first place goes to the paper entitled The Effectiveness of Vocabulary Web AR as English Learning Media for Students of SMP Negeri 3 Wonosalam, written by Ubaidillah, Iin Baroroh Ma'arif, Luluk Charon Nisaknur, and Yuyun Bahtiar from Universitas Kiai Haji Ahmad Wahab Hasbullah. And the second place goes to the paper entitled Social Media Microlearning and EFL Speaking, Exploring Learners' Experiences Through a Cognitive Load Theory Lens, written by Sekar Mayang Fitria Budianto, Bambang Harmanto, Anna Mahwiroh, and Elok Putri Nimasari from Universitas Muhammadiyah Ponorogo. And then the third place goes to the paper entitled Designing and Implementing a Multimodal Task-Based Module for Teaching Descriptive Language to Young EFL Learners, written by Nguyen Truc Quinn. So sorry if I mispronounce your name. From Phan Lang University, Vietnam. Okay, next please. Okay, start from now, I will announce to you the best presenter from Day 1 conference in each room. Start from room 1. And the awardees are okay, the first place goes to Ngoc Min Hoang from International Education Institute, Phan Lang University. So sorry if I mispronounce your name again. And for the second place goes to Husnul Arya from Universitas Kiai Haji Ahmad Wahab Hasbullah. And then for the third place, it is Zoheb Hassan Sen from Superior University. Okay, next to the best presenter of room 2. And the awardees are the first place goes to Rizkiana Mahardika from Universitas Brawijaya. And the second place, Igede Putu Agus Pramerta from Universitas Mahasareswati Denpasar. And then the third place, Lodewicus James van Rensburg from University of Johannesburg. Okay, congratulations. Let's go to room 3. Okay, the best presenter of room 3, the first place goes to Zakia Zarin Rifka from Universitas Wiralodra. And the second place goes to Raden Firti Kamilatul Fasa and Gisna Aulia from UIN Sunan Gunjati. And the third place goes to Fitra Ramadhani from Universitas Islam Kalimantan Arsyad Al-Banjari Banjarmasin. Okay, next please. Yeah, the best presenter from room 4. The first place goes to Lela Nurhasana from Universitas Majalengka. And the second place goes to Rahmania from Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Kalimantan Selatan. The third place, Alfiah Gevira Rodotul Jannah from Universitas Muhammadiyah Semarang. Okay, the fifth room. The awardees are, the first place, it is Nicole Ribano from National University Fairview. And the second place, Herlia Naura Sasikirana from Universitas Harapan Bangsa. And the third place, Iim Hairunisa from STKIP Sheikh Mansur. Okay, the next, the best presenter from room 6. And the awardees are, the first place, it is Najma Olvia Zahra and Meme Rahmi Riastriani from Universitas Majalengka. The second place, Fajrian Nor from Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Kalimantan Selatan. Third place, Sinta Novia from Universitas Muhammadiyah Kota Bumi. Okay, the best presenter from room 7. The first place goes to Vivit Anggun Novianti from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. And the second place, Septian Hoirunisa from Universitas Muhammadiyah Ponorogo. And the third place, Sigit Suharjono from Universitas Muhammadiyah Kota Bumi. Okay, let's go to room 8. We still have 6 more rooms, yeah. Okay, room 8. The first place goes to Chandra Alvindo Des from Asosiasi Profesi Dosen dan Guru Bahasa Asing Indonesia. And the second place goes to Van Ngoc Dai Nguyen from Van Lang University. And the third place, Janati Aulia Fitri from Antasari State Islamic University, Banjarmasin. Okay, next room, room 9. Okay, the first place goes to Muhammad Pandu Hoiron from Universitas Harapan Bangsa. Next, the second place goes to Saint Nadia and Rizkia Rahmi from UIN Antasari, Banjarmasin. And the third place goes to Nur Haliza from Wiralodra University. Okay, let's move on to room 10. The first place goes to Putri Gayatri from Universitas Brawijaya, Indonesia. And the second place goes to Vivi Zahiro from Harapan Bangsa University. And then the third place goes to Husnul Fatimah from Universitas Muhammadiyah Semarang. Okay, and the best presenters for room 11. The first place goes to Hansa Farama Satara from Universitas Muhammadiyah Ponorogo. And the second place goes to Ida Nurbaiti from Sambas State Polytechnic. And then the third place goes to Daniar Sofeni from Universitas Islam Darul Ulum Lamongan. Okay, let's move on to room 12. And the first place, it is Irwansyah from UIN Raden Intan, Lampung. And the second place Nurul Hasanah from Sambas State Polytechnic. And the third place, Alfi Nurul Rosida from Universitas Kiai Haji Ahmad Wahab Hasbullah. Next, room 13. The first place goes to Muhammad Reza Fauzan Adima from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. And the second place goes to Irfan Suryansyah from Islamic University of Darul Ulum, Lamongan. And the third place goes to Bekti Setio Astuti from Universitas 17 Agustus 1945, Semarang. And the last room for day 1. Room 14. The best presenters are the first place goes to Hairil Yakin from Pasca Sarjana UIN Antasari Banjarmasin. And the second place goes to Dewata Carolina Sarjono from STKIP Sheikh Mansur. And the third place, Lailatul Qadriyah from Universitas Islam Kalimantan Muhammad Arsyad Al-Banjari, Banjarmasin. Okay, those are the best presenter of conference day 1. Congratulations for all of you. And now I'd like to move on to the best presenters of today's conference. So let's start from room 1. The first place goes to Hanin Triwinata from Universitas Negeri Semarang. The second place goes to Emilia Handoko from Quikiangi School of Business and Information Technology. The third place goes to Salsa Sulasa Salsabila from STIA Latifah Mubarakiyah. Next, let's move on to room 2. And the best presenters are the first place goes to Pradita Catherine Kalangit from Quikiangi School of Business and Information Technology. And the second place goes to Faisal Rizky Yutama from Universitas Prima Indonesia. And then the third place goes to Yuki Widianto, Anton Hermawan, Dwi Anggitasari, Syaharani Indah Puspita, and Violeta Fania Putro from Universitas Harapan Bangsa. Okay, the last but not least, the best presenters from room 3. Okay, the awardees are, here it is. First place goes to Ellen Ferdin from Quikiangi School of Business and Information Technology. And the second place, Herwinda Larasati and Intan Nur Aini from Universitas Harapan Bangsa. And the third place goes to Eliza Noviriani from Polytechnic Negeri Sambas. Okay. Congratulations for all the awardees and thank you very much for your outstanding contribution. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, for participants of Social Humanities Conference, please note that the best paper, there will be best paper categories, but it will be announced later through the authors group. So we kindly ask all authors to stay updated through the group for the official announcement in the WhatsApp group. Thank you very much. Okay, well, on behalf of the organizing committee, in this moment, I would like to extend our deepest appreciation to our keynote speakers for their valuable knowledge and inspirations, to our guests for their presence, and to our hosts and co-hosts for their generous support and collaboration. Our heartfelt thanks also go to all presenters and participants whose enthusiasm and active engagement made this conference vibrant and successful. And most importantly, I would like to offer special thanks to the entire committee. Your dedication, teamwork, and hard work behind the scene have made this conference possible. Your commitment has been truly invaluable. Well, with this, me, myself, Tri Pujani, Master of Education as the chairperson of English Education Conference, and on behalf of Mr. Pujangga Chandra Wijayaning Fajri, Bachelor and Master of Law as the chairperson of Social Humanities Conference, officially close the first Globe International Conference 2026. Thank you very much for your participation, and we look forward to meeting you again in the future academic collaboration. See you again and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the Globe International Conference. Before we proceed to closing session, I'd like to invite you to open your cameras and let's take some pictures together. All right. Is everyone ready? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we kindly request you to open your cameras and we are going to take a picture together. Is everyone ready? Ladies and gentlemen, please turn on your cameras. All right. On behalf of the organizing committee, would like to express our sincere gratitude to all distinguished speakers, presenters, and participants for your valuable contributions and active participations. We hope this conference has been insightful and beneficial for all of us. Thank you very much for your attention and participation. We wish you a safe journey and look forward to seeing you again in the second Globe International Conference 2027. Good afternoon and see you next time.